thank you for everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Marcos Hiller from Brazil, São Paulo. I'm a brand strategist. I'm the founder of Branding Summit Festival, and this is the day three of our event. I'm so excited about the conversation that we're having here. Very, very excited. So I'm gonna invite Hallie Allen to come to the stage for his presentation. Hi, Alan. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to see everyone. Thank you for having me, Marcos. It's very lovely to be here. Should I cue up my presentation?
Yeah, Alan. Thank you so much for your participation here. It's an honor for us having you from Champions Design. We love the studio. We love the brand. We love your projects. For example, NBA, Carnegie Hall, and all of these examples. So, Helen, the stage is yours. Thank you. Welcome to Brandon Summit Festival.
Yes, and thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to speak to everyone today. Um, in my talk today, I am going to be discussing how sometimes one project can really give way to more than what was ever predicted. It can lead to much more. So, um, let's get into it. A little bit about Champions Design. It's a Black and woman-owned branding agency founded in 2010 by Jennifer Kynan and Bobby C. Martin Jr. And I've had the honor of working here as a producer and project manager for the past 6 years. Our office is located at 203 Avenue A in the heart of New York City's East Village. As seen here in this video, our storefront office gives us a front row seat to the theater that unfolds on the streets of this neighborhood. The cast of characters, and they definitely are characters that roam these streets, are the core of what I'll be focusing on. Like any good East Villager, we read our local digital publication, Evie Grieve. And in August of 2023, we saw this article that told the story of a pastor, a teacher, and a chef who forged a friendship by way of a dog park during peak COVID. An otherwise unlikely trio, they met up to let their dogs run and play while they got their sort of social fix in an otherwise shut down New York. It quickly became a beloved highlight of their days, and their friendship grew. Eventually, the pastor invited his new friends to join the board of his parish's soup kitchen and food pantry, called Trinity Services and Food for the Homeless, also referred to as SAFE. I think it's really important to take a moment to note exactly what they're accomplishing at SAFE. It's a relatively small soup kitchen, and every day around noon, a line forms around the block, and a small staff, supported by just a few volunteers, feeds hundreds of people without question. All you have to do is show up and be hungry, and it's really a beautiful sight to see. Chef Will, pictured on the right here, wasn't on the SAFE board long before he had the genius idea to create an old school community cookbook as a fundraiser. And this article was really his rallying cry to get his neighbors to submit recipes. It's important to note that the East Village isn't necessarily the most normal neighborhood. Neighbors include quite a few celebrities, Michelin-starred chefs, but also grandmas and students and a full range of people. Um, After we read this story in the studio, of course, the first thing we wondered was, who is designing this? Could we? How could we get involved? So we reached out to Chef Will on Instagram. It was the only way we knew how to reach him. set up a meeting and volunteered ourselves. He was down to work with us. Now, this is the initial image they had been using to promote the community cookbook in the earliest days prior to our involvement. It's rooted itself deeply in the long tradition of the American community and church cookbooks with their plastic comb bindings and funky handmade, locally printed aesthetics, but it didn't really communicate the culture and story of the community it would be feeding, the East Village. A community bursting with counterculture. This is a sticker wall in a local record store our creative director frequents. And art. The neighborhood's chocked full of mosaics like these by artist Jim Powers, literally filling cracks in the sidewalks and decorating facades. Local businesses. One of our favorite lunch spots in the studio is pictured center here. And it's a DIY spirit. You have to love the tape lettering and the stenciled rubber stamp sign, as well as the performing arts with film, music, and theater. So to begin injecting the cookbook with the spirit of the East Village, our creative director, Mike McCauley, began creating what we started referring to as seals. So here you see Jim Spa, and here's an archival photo of what is now closed, but was once Jim Spa with the punks on the sidewalk, informing the seal. All of these seals pulled from local businesses, graffiti, records, museums, the depths of online archives and blogs, and even some food labels found on our first site visit to SAFE. The entire Champions team took to the streets. We literally went to the streets with our phones in hand, cameras in hand, to contribute to this visual research. No, there we go. Looks like this took a while to load. Here we go. In total, the book includes over 100 of these seals. But we didn't stop there. We created ads, pulling reviews from Yelp and Google, uplifting local icons of past and present. You'll see some marked in memoriam as they flip through. And if you look closely, some of these reviews range from heartfelt to hilarious. One of them here reads, I have been searching NYC for the perfect banh mi, and I have to search no longer. This is it. This is the best. Or a personal favorite of mine found in the book, no alcohol signs at the entrance. But if you put $1 in one of the Coke machines and push the unmarked button at the far right, an ice cold bud would come out. And in addition, each recipe got a custom illustration by our very own designer, Michael Pinda. You can start to get a peek of some of our notable contributors. Here's Susan Sarandon's contribution, the humor, and the system that designers were developing to make each recipe feel very special and unique, while also feeling unified. And all of these illustrations came to live with one another in a map that we developed of the neighborhood, bursting with food, dogs, different neighborhood characters like a hawk in the park, and of course, rats that make our neighborhood special. And if you look closely, you might also find some familiar faces on the corner of 12th and A. Had to put ourselves in there too. Ultimately, what was intended as a simple staple-bound book printed at the local copy center, that was Chef Will's vision, ballooned in size to 300 pages. And over 100 recipes submitted through email, dictation, and even typo-written text messages by very, very busy local politicians. Chef Will's call was heard, and the neighborhood came together to support this cause. As the project became bigger and more polished, the greatest challenge as a producer was that the two biggest motivators I often call on, scope and timeline, just weren't present in this project. No one was getting paid. Not us, not Chef Will, not the Michelin-starred chefs with their recipes, not our big publishing house editors. And our printer was pretty much publishing everything it cost. We were all pro bono. And on top of that, our timeline was fairly flexible. Eventually, we found motivation in Promised Press in the form of a holiday season gift guide. And with that, we had our firm deadline to help bring this project across the finish line. But like any project, the final stretch was not without a few snags, like issues with materials and our printer disappearing for a couple of days while on the road, which rightly so really worried Chef Will, who was navigating press inquiries and needed physical copies of the book to share. You have to love a passive-aggressive smiley face. We were all really banding together to chase him down. We don't usually conduct so much work over text message in this way. But in the end, to counter the delays, our printer and his father drove halfway across the country to hand deliver the first delivery of books for the launch in their personal pickup truck. It was truly a community affair. And wow, were they beautiful. Here you can see the 6 cover variations and that iconic plastic comb binding, the standard we showed earlier in the other community cookbooks. And a gorgeous double layer cover showcasing our seals on a vellum layer and an illustration of Safe by neighbor and New Yorker illustrator Marcellus Hall. You can see more seals on the inside front cover. And of course, a close-up to see the printing and the comb. In the end, the book contained more than just recipes, as seen by this excerpt of a poem. 100 years of immigrants had preceded my arrival, and I savored the tangible remnants of what they'd established. Bakeries, cheese shops, restaurants, shoe repair joints, and fishmongers. Submissions were divvied up geographically, and each chapter showcased a cross-section of the neighborhood. Here you can see the northernmost section from 14th to 10th, which has Safe pictured in the lower right, that really big square. You can see the outside of the church that houses the soup kitchen. And the system that I previewed earlier that makes each recipe feel special and unique, but a part of the whole. We had some creative problem solving that we employed for how to include beloved family recipe cards without losing the character of anyone's great grandma's handwriting. And we continued using the seals as page dividers. Here's the back cover. And the neighborhood loved it. Pictured center, you will see Ray of the East Village Institution, Ray's Candy Store. He's in his 90s and was very excited to get his copy with his recipe included. And other friends and contributors. We even created a little contributor sign that local businesses proudly displayed, as seen here in the neighborhood's famous Ukrainian restaurant, Veselka, on the left. So while we were preparing for the launch celebration and promotion of the cookbook, Chef Will started introducing us to other friends of his who had been supporting his efforts, including our neighbors of the Lower East Side Film Festival. Their founders, Roxy and Tony, are pictured here in the blue shirts. They loved how Champions was able to capture the spirit of the neighborhood while also implementing a design system that made everything feel more polished and unified, something they'd not yet achieved for their film festival. After the launch of the cookbook settled down, and we all had a chance to breathe a bit, we met with them in the new year and decided to take on the challenge of getting a system in their hands for their quickly approaching 15th anniversary festival. After setting up a quick retainer structure, we were off to work. And we built on our research of the neighborhood for the cookbook, expanding it beyond the East Village into the broader Lower East Side neighborhood of New York. We looked to handmade band posters and indie film posters and local theaters of past and present, which led us to Village East Cinemas, a studio favorite and the main hub of the festival where their opening night is always hosted. Our Lower East Side Film Festival friends took our design team on a field trip there for some research. And it's important to note that when you enter the theater, you go under this old school marquee with hand-placed letters, one of the last of its kind in New York. Of course, as lovers of type, our designers wanted to take a closer look. So they went into the theater storage and meticulously documented each letter, which eventually gave rise to the core of what would become the new Lower East Side brand and system by way of a custom typeface. With facets that echo the sun shining on the actual marquee's letters, and of course, the light always shining from the lower right-hand corner or Lower East Side. We named it Cash after the guy that installs the letters outside of the theater every week on an impressively tall ladder. And also created a solid version, which gave way to the festival's new logo and its secondary typeface. This all together created a flexible system that would ensure that the film festival felt unified. The system made the tons of collateral they have to produce each year more manageable for them. And it all came together in a way that made them feel a little bit more grown up in their 15th year while still sticking to their independent film roots, feeling a little not too buttoned up. Here's a little bit more of the system that shows this kind of device that mimics the marquee. And of course, we made a tote and other merch to help promote the festival in the most Lower East Side way, stickers and everything. And on May 1st of this year, the festival opened with a line around the block, with festival goers ready to celebrate great indie film while signaling a new chapter that's a little more polished, but undeniably fun. Because the Lower East Side Film Festival loves a party. And like any good film festival, we also updated their laurels inspired by the marquee. Here you can see them a little more closely on the awards given to the best of their films. But we didn't end there. In addition to running the Lower East Side Film Festival, our new friends Roxy and Tony also own and operate BFD Productions and brought us on as collaborators to create graphics for a few upcoming series they were shooting. For none other than the Magnolia Network, ironically headquartered in my hometown of Waco, Texas. Isn't it a small world? Releasing on HBO over the next few weeks, Our total of three Design Forward home tour series. You can see them all here together. And I'll wrap things up with my cookbook favorite, A Runny Egg. In these three projects, we found that through sharing our skills to directly benefit our neighbors most in need, we were able to elevate what our new friend Chef Will thought was possible. We expanded our network and ultimately brought on a new client, collaborator, and friend. Obrigado.
Amazing, amazing, Hallie Allen. Beautiful, beautiful project. We loved so much. So everyone, please Q&A on the chat, please. Helen, once in a while in 2016, I was in Alphabet City, this part of the lower Manhattan, the Avenue B, and I believe you translate the atmosphere of this neighborhood perfectly. Telling us a little bit about in Brazil, for example, we have so much a phenomenon, a social phenomenon called gentrification, right? Gentrification is when the big brands came in this neighborhood, they going out, the local brands do not resist the capitalism system and going out about the price of the rent is going up and how this project deal with the gentrification, for example, how the local business. I believe you try to help support this local business, but telling us a little bit about the gentrification phenomenon, please.
Yes. New York has many neighborhoods have been victim for gentrification. I lived in Brooklyn for many years, and you could really see from year to year even the change in a neighborhood because of that. The East Village has not been spared from gentrification, but there there are a lot of local businesses still. There are quite a few, and there are quite a few that are are almost the identity of New York City. You see Venero's, I think it's been around for over 125 years. It's a bakery. Veselka, which I highlighted. Russo's, which is an old Italian deli. So you have these long-standing businesses kind of help prop up the framework and identity of the neighborhoods. There's changeover. I think the coffee shop on our corner has changed hands many times over the years, but I think that there's something in the East Village where it really values locally owned businesses. It's not we're not spared from Starbucks and stuff like that. That's still in the neighborhood. I don't know if it made it to the final version of the map, but at one point we were toying with the idea of making every Starbucks location marked as a bathroom, like a public bathroom. But we kind of had fun with really spotlighting the local businesses, and there are quite a few of them there.
Nice, nice. It sounds to me such as a place branding project, right? As we know, in New York, we have one of the greatest place branding projects called I Love New York. In Amsterdam, I Amsterdam, and this project needs to make kind of a dialogue with the I Love New York brand system, or nothing at all. It's totally independent project, right?
Yeah, I would say it's totally independent. It's definitely more rough around the edges and punk, because the Lower East Side and the East Village are kind of like the younger, more rambunctious neighborhoods of New York and embody that.
Amazing, amazing. Hi everyone, we have some questions in the chat to Hallie Allen. Beautiful project, beautiful brand system. It's very consistent. We love the brand system. Very black and white, only color. Very simple, very minimalist, and amazing. Here in Brazil, we suffer a little bit about this phenomenon called gentrification. Uh, Q&A, please, on the chat with Hallie Allen. If someone to want to open the camera to ask a question or something. You said you born and raised in Waco, Texas, right?
Yes, I was born in Dallas. I went
Dallas,
to high school in Waco.
Waco.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a small city. It's a college town in Central Texas. Its biggest recent claim to fame is this Magnolia Network that had a very successful kind of home improvement, home flipping series on TV. So I was surprised when I found out that our newest client worked with them.
Exactly, exactly. I love a small city in the Texas call it Corpus, the Prada store. What's the name of the Prada store?
Rada Marfa.
Marfa in Texas. Amazing place. It's a artistic intervention, right?
Yeah, I know Donald Judd really spent a lot of time creating an artist community there.
Ali, there's a comment in the chat. Could you see, please?
Yeah, I'm seeing Fernanda, my project manager site is curious. How do you keep all these projects so well organized and ensure everyone on the team stays engaged? What kind of setup and tools do you rely on? We're actually reworking a lot of that as our team's grown a little bit over the last year. Um, we use spreadsheets a lot and all of those kind of normal things, and regular communication and check-ins is the backbone. We're switching over to use more AI-enabled tools like Granola, and I'm shifting a lot of my spreadsheets over to Asana now to make it a little easier as we have a few more cooks in the kitchen to communicate.
There's another question of Poliana de Oliveira, please.
Um, Seeing that Pollyanna wrote a cookbook on Brazilian recipes and the importance of identity. Curious to hear about your process. It's for a brand client you're not too familiar with. We really at Champions root our process in strategy and research. So every project we have, as seen in the two main projects that I talked about today, we really start with a lot of in-depth research. In the case of those projects, it was mostly visual research, but it often also includes interviews, going to archives, all of that. And we really root everything in curiosity and then begin to build the design out of that once a solid strategy is kind of agreed upon with the client. It's not a groundbreaking or unusual process, but we stick to it with all of our projects to make sure that we have a solid foundation.
Nice. I believe there's a final question here of Diogo. How to acquire new clients, for example, and Champions Design? Do you involve in this process, for example?
Yes, so I think this is a good example of that. We when we saw that they were making an East Village cookbook and we saw that it was for such a good cause, without question, we volunteered. We knew we weren't going to get paid. We knew it would be a really fulfilling project. In addition to that, we said, look, we are going to put the pedal to the metal on design. We are going to make this look so cool. We're going to really inject it with the love of our neighborhood. And from that, use this project to introduce ourselves and what we are capable of to potential clients. And in this case, it really has helped. It helped us be introduced to the Lower East Side Film Festival, which has opened up to future collaborations and work. In other cases, a lot of our new business comes from people who are familiar with our work, whether they've seen us do a presentation, whether they've known us for many years. One of our biggest projects, Carnegie Hall, the CMO of that organization, knew Bobby Martin for many years. They'd worked together previously. And so when there was an opportunity, she reached out to him. So a lot of connections, a lot of personal relationships, the occasional RFP response, and sending a proposal in, and the occasional cold call when we find something that's really important to us. Sort of like how we approach the cookbook, but usually not pro bono.
Nice. Hallie, there's no wrong answer here, right? When I talk to you about Brazil, what comes in your mind?
Well, I don't know much about Brazil, but the thing that comes in my mind that might be more unique to me is that my uncle spent many, many years working in Brazil and speaks Portuguese. But he would come home and cook us food that he learned how to make while he was in Brazil. And there was one um, dish that he really loved making with chopped up chicken, kind of like a street food prepared dish. And he always served as an appetizer. And so I always think of that. Of course, I also think of Carnival and all of those things. Um, but I think it's a very spirited country from what I know, and a country that also seems to love design.
Yeah. We have a very unique design here. We are not a country. We are a continent like US, right? And the final question, what is the best part and the worst part to live in New York, in Brooklyn? Your
Yeah.
favorite spots and some kind of B-side of to live in New York.
Yeah, I didn't mention this in my presentation, but I very recently moved back to my home state of Texas just a few months ago. Um, but I lived in New York for 12 years, and I think the best thing about New York is the culture. You can just be have your window cracked open and sometimes there's a jazz band playing on the corner. Like that's amazing. Where else do you get that? Not many places in the United States. Definitely not where I'm living now. Every great museum show seems, every great artist seems to find their way to New York. You have the performances of venues like Carnegie Hall. You really have it all. Culturally, I think one of the hardest things about New York that surprised me after I moved was getting groceries. It's really quite hard to get all of your groceries from the grocery store and carry them and then go up usually 5 flights of stairs and a walk up. It was an unexpected hardship of New York, but the community and the culture definitely makes up for it.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, Halle Allen. It's a pleasure for us here in Brazil. Listen your presentation. A lot of good tips for our projects here in Brazil. I mentioned in the chat the Instagram of Champions Design, right? This is the to reach out your contact to know about a little bit more about yourself, your projects. The Instagram is the best touch point, right?
Yeah, they can reach out on Instagram or email. I can put in my email here as well.
Amazing.
Oh, I have a typo. Let me fix that. There we go.
Are you hiring in Champion Design?
Right now, we don't have a specific role we're hiring for, but we are always looking for interns. So we have kind of like an intern program that rolls throughout the year. So if anyone knows a great intern that is in New York, we would love to receive their portfolio.
Amazing. Hello, Alan. Muito obrigado. It's a great pleasure to hear you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. See you next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye. Thank you. Sensacional. Fantástica a fala da Halle Allen. Champion Design, coloquei aqui no chat. Vamos acompanhar, vamos seguir. Eles lidam com projetos realmente. Cara, já comecei a pensar, né? Trazer uma experiência dessa para o Brasil. Como é que não tem no Brasil uma iniciativa similar a essa, da gente pegar um bairro aqui de São Paulo específico e fazer algo similar na intenção de promover os mercados locais, as lojas, enfim. Muito bom.